You're listening to a Mamamia podcast.
Mamamia acknowledges the traditional owners of land and waters that this podcast is recorded on. Hello and welcome to Mamamia Out Loud. It's what women are actually talking about on Wednesday, the 6th of December. I'm Holly Wainwright.
I'm Mia Freedman.
And I'm Jessie Stevens, and today is a big day.
It is a big day.
Mia, it feels like your birthday, but it's not your birthday. It's something else weird. Go.
It is the day that Strife premieres. You can listen. Premieres?
Yes, correct.
So
Good, well done.
Out
Well
loud
done.
as last night,
Mia finally had the right reason to say that word.
we went to the premiere
Yes.
of Strife. There were no premiers in attendance.
No.
But I wish Gladys had been there, but that's a different story. It was great. It was overwhelming. We'll talk about it more at another time, but you can now watch it. This thing that we've been talking about for so long is now available to watch on Binge. Let us know what you think.
Watch the whole thing. We've got so much coming for you. We have a behind-the-scenes podcast where we'll go episode by episode. We've got a special that's dropping tomorrow, all about where Holly speaks to Mia and I about the sort of true stories behind it. I'm very excited for the Out Louders to watch it. Please let us know what you think.
I am wearing my pants with nerves.
On the show today, why do people love to hate influencers so very much? One woman has gone viral in their defence. And are you okay or are you an eldest daughter? And our Prime Minister is being branded a beta male, as if that's the very worst thing you can be in 2023. But first, in case you missed it,
Riz is the word of the year. I thought it was Rizzo from Greece.
What's that, Zook?
You looking good, Riz?
Eat your heart out.
no.
And I was confused. I've
I
never
keep
heard of this
thinking
word.
It's related to jizz.
Jizz.
not.
But it's not
Riz.
related to
Not
jizz.
related.
And then I
It's
thought,
Greece.
is it Raz, like when you razz someone up? No. There's a 2023 word of the year, and it's embarrassing that I've never heard of it. So a couple of weeks ago, we announced that Australia's word of the year was Matilda, but the Oxford word of the year, the Oxford University word of the year is Riz, and it's slang, shorthand slang for charisma.
I knew this. How am I cooler
How
than
did you know
for
that?
once in the entire world? Because I've heard
Use it in a sentence.
Timothy Chalamet has loads of Riz.
Doesn't sound natural, Holly. It
Does he
really
though?
doesn't.
I know I've never used it, and I don't know that I would. I know what it means. And I have a theory of why it's become so important, is that charisma is one thing in like a very deep fake world that you can't fake. You can kind of fake charisma online a little bit, but when you meet somebody in person, and I don't mean just famous people, I mean any person, you've either got Riz or you haven't. You can't buy it. You can't fake it.
Yeah.
And I reckon that's why the young people like it so much.
I think the reason I'm upset about it is that I've certainly never had anyone in my orbit say
you
I
don't
have
have
Riz.
any.
I don't have Riz. You must
don't.
not either, though. No one's approached you and
No,
said
no.
you're
She
oozing
does.
Riz.
I've
got
got
bags of Riz.
but like there's a lot of other things that I don't have. Let me be clear.
Does
then-
Holly have Riz?
Holly's got Riz.
I've got Riz.
How can I
you don't
develop
have
my
Riz.
Riz?
I think it's something you're born with or not. I'm sorry, but some of the other words that were shortlisted include.
Harsh. No, it's because you've got all the brains
you know
around
what?
here that
Correct.
Mia's just feeling like she can throw that at you.
Just to be clear, Riz is not the best thing you can have. Like you've got tertiary degrees. Holly and I, loads of Riz, no qualifications whatsoever. But I want to tell you some of the other shortlisted words. Beige flag, which is a characteristic or trait that's not distinctly good or bad.
Yeah.
Ooh, what's the point of it? A situationship, which is like a romantic or sexual relationship that's not, it's complicated basically. Swifty, we all know what that is. And I want to nominate one, my favourite word of the year, which I'm just going to use a lot because I've just discovered it, Delulu.
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 All the cool people
yeah.
in the office are saying
Delulu.
Delulu.
Does that mean what I think it means?
Deluded.
Yeah.
Yeah, it means, Holly, I can see your bra through your shirt.
You look Delulu.
You're a bit Delulu.
It's true. She can. I decided to embrace the worst from last week. I'm just going for it.
Why is the term social media influencer so loaded? Michelle Battersby, who is a tech founder, she's the CMO and co-founder of Sunroom, has written an open letter on Instagram directed to every influencer and those who judge them. What happened was Michelle was interviewed recently and was referred to as an influencer. And at first, she went to correct this publication and say, oh, actually, that's not my job title. But then she thought, I do have an online community. I'm just going to own it. I'll leave it and see what happens. Then she noticed the tone of the comments. One read, "Is her job one of the useless ones? I can't be bothered listening to this woman." And another said, "Lol, that's not a job. I'm sure you could leverage a child for content. Yuck, I hate the future." That was in reference to the fact she's pregnant.
Seems harsh.
Michelle writes, "As I pored over the comments, all I could think was, wow, if my LinkedIn was attached, would they take me seriously? If the word influencer was not mentioned, would they have listened to me more?" Her appearance was commented on in a way it's not usually when she's referred to as a tech founder. Her intelligence was questioned and her perspective dismissed. One of her most interesting reflections was, "Tell me what professions held by men lead to them being immediately dismissed, ignored and devalued. None come to mind." She said, "To shit on influencers is just another patriarchal expression to make a woman's work seem trivial." Mia, do you think this is changing, or do people still see influencers as vacuous?
Oh, yeah, completely. And I think this is so ironic because it's just the next word in the canon of words and terms, from chicklit to mummy blogger to MILF, that's used to reduce and demean women. And I think that when you think about what an influencer is, they are someone who has influence. Malala is an influencer, essentially.
You're going to get cancelled for saying that, and I will be probably first in line.
No, but I'm not saying that she's not other things as well. In the same way that Michelle Battersby, who I've tried to hire before because she's so brilliant at what she does as a marketer and now a tech founder, she's got a brilliant executive media and tech mind. She was also very influential in that there are people who are interested in what she does, what she thinks, what she says. And that is all an influencer is. It's like a mummy blogger is a woman who writes about parenting, but the term has become really corrupted.
So I'm going to disagree with you on that. I think that Malala is influential, and that there's a difference between being influential. When we say influencer, I think what we mean is content creators who are often trying to sell us something online. I reckon that that's mostly what we're thinking about. And Michelle said...
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah, definitely.
And Michelle said in her post, look, I've done a handful of sponsored posts. They're not really for me and I don't do them anymore. So I don't actually really consider myself an influencer.
Do you two consider yourselves influencers?
Well, it's interesting you ask that because I've really been grappling with this and this spoke to me a lot. While I was on maternity leave, I did do more influencing than I normally would because it's a way to...
You created more branded content.
Yes, I created more branded content. And I had this conversation with my partner where I said, I'm an author, I'm a podcaster, I'm a writer. Does this make people take me less seriously? If I'm plugging a brand, then what does that do to people's understanding of me?
And your credibility.
And my credibility. And it's funny because if you said to someone, I work in advertising, there's a degree of respect afforded to that, right? Or like I create content. That's why I prefer content creator. Because as someone who has done the influencing stuff, it is so hard.
Yeah,
it is
really
so
hard.
time consuming.
Can you explain to people why?
So the first step of it is, so I worked with a brand called Love to Dream and they do swaddles. And I've been using them on Luna and I think they spotted it in one of my
I
videos.
can vouch for that.
They're great. And they said, hey, we will pay you X amount of dollars to make a reel. Well, actually that price is often negotiated, but to make a reel. And I went, well, I like it. I do use swaddles. Why not? So I then pitch to them a concept. They say, yep. I then make the content. They get to have a few edits if they want. It's a lot of back and forth. And then I post it. I've had to have this filter with influencing stuff where I go, what I don't want to do is tell people that they need to be buying shit all the time. So if it's a swaddle, it's a pram, it's a things that I know I'll need, I feel like I can.
How do you feel about monetizing the following that you have built through your hard work and over the course of your career, particularly in the last few years since social media has been a thing?
I do influencing work too, as anyone who follows me on socials knows. And the way that I look at it is I have several income streams, like lots of people do these days, right? So I have my Mamamia income stream, I have my book income stream, and I have my content creator income stream. The reason everybody hates influencers, let's be honest, and the reason all the people in the comments hate them is because it's not a proper job. Like, it's not a proper job. It's hard. I do it, and it's much more difficult
do you
than
mean?
anyone.
It's not
a proper- I dispute that.
Maybe let me explain.
Why?
Jeez,
I
you
just want to
two.
tell you you're wrong.
Because if you're sitting on the sidelines and you have a proper job, teaching, working in retail, being a nurse, jobs that are actually like out there doing things, all you see of an influencer is you get sent free shit and then you try and sell it to me and you get paid for that. So you get free shit, paid for it, selling it to me, asking me for my dollars. Just like any relationship that is a customer and brand, they've got the power, right? The customer has the power to go, do I like that? Do I like the way you're selling it to me? Not really. And that doesn't look like it's worth my dollars, whatever. So they're in the seat of critiquing what you're doing. And they're going, this looks like money for jam from where they're sitting, like with their real job. And they don't get invited to nice parties and premieres of things. And basically influencers are aspirational. They're the new celebrities. The eye rolling and irritation with celebrities has always gone hand in hand with the adoration of celebrities. Like, yeah, they're great and I like what they do, but that'd be nice, wouldn't it? Imagine making money like that. And influencing is the new that, except it seems even sillier from where they're sitting because they're going, that just looks ridiculous. You're just trying to sell me things and I resent it. And I entirely understand that. But I think that once you're in that relationship with your audience and you are being offered money to monetize them, then everybody in that position makes their individual decisions about what they will and won't promote. And that's what I do and it's what you do, Jessie. And I've had all the same wrestles that you do and I still do about like, does this make you less serious and all those things? Anybody with a profile wrestles with that kind of stuff and you just have to make your own decisions about it. But I do entirely understand the broad eye rolling about influencers, because if you're not in that world and you don't understand what it takes and you don't understand what goes into it, it looks like a bullshit job.
So historically, what it used to be is that the people who are influencers, and let's be real, a lot of them are beautiful. They're also a new class of sort of models. Those influencers a generation ago would have been a cog in a machine where it was the men earning the money off the beautiful faces. Now the beautiful faces, and I exclude myself from beautiful face. But they're now making the money that the men used to make off them. So don't you think that the critique of influencers is gendered and that it's got a hint of misogyny to it?
I don't actually think so because, I do think so to a point because I think that especially young beautiful women are always going to get a lot of shit along with the adoration that we were discussing before. And it can make them seem frivolous and people will say all those things. But I think male influencers cop a lot of shit too. I think Matty J cops a certain amount of shit for making paid content. In fact, he spoke about it on the interview that he did with Mia and Laura where he said people don't really consider that a proper job.
Wow, Laura's doing so well. She's got so much. And I think with her work, it was a real clear identity of what her product was. She had a jewelry business that everyone understood. She had a radio show that people could understand. Whereas the bulk of my work was still, being a social media creator, which people outside of that world don't quite comprehend. And I don't think it has the same weight behind it as...
And people can be quite condescending about it.
Yeah.
And he's very good at it. See, the thing is like any creative...
Yeah, but when you say the word influencer, you don't think of a guy. You don't think of Matty J.
No,
like,
you
he's
don't,
the exception,
but there are male influencers. And I think there will be more and more, right? So, you'll see paid promotional content from a lot of the big male names on social media. Hamish Blake makes paid content.
Yeah, of course. But I want to ask the difference between being an influencer and being in someone's ad campaign or being a spokesmodel.
I think that it is the new that, because only to pick a little hole in what you said, Jessie, about now the beautiful woman's making the dollars. Well, often the beautiful woman is being paid by the man still. You know what I mean? Like, unless it's her brand and she's making the thing, she's still being paid by a brand. It's not actually any different from
it's hugely different.
If she was the model.
No, it's hugely different in what she earns a whole. It's hugely different.
No, I know it's different what she earns, but what I mean is, and I'm not criticizing the industry because I participate in it and I like it. And also I'm influenced all the time, right?
Yeah.
I buy a lot of things because people have told me to buy them on Instagram. But what I'm trying to say is I think that it's empowering to a point, but very often it is just the new version of being a spokesmodel. If I'm being paid by a brand to say that their product is good, The platform I'm using to do that is Instagram, but it's not actually that much different from if the platform I was using to do it once would have been a magazine article
Or a TV
or
ad.
a TV ad.
I want to say a couple of things about that. First of all, let's be very clear that legally you are required to disclose, declare,
Yes.
and you always do. Anyone we work with at Mamamia always does. And that is the rules. Like you can't just go, if you'd have done your piece of content for the sleep suit and not declared that it was an ad, that's in breach and you get a fine. So no one's trying to trick anyone. And I think that is sometimes a misconception. But I think the things that are different is that once upon a time, the people who were in ads were people who looked a certain way. And what social media has done has allowed a lot of different types of people to build communities. When we say communities, we mean followers, right? People who are interested in what they've got to say. What it's done is literally widened the spectrum of people who are able to monetize that audience. Because the other thing that drives me crazy is that people might roll their eyes about the content that you might make for a brand, but what they don't think about is all the time you spend in making content just for them, for free.
And also, to be clear, it only works if it's good. Do you know what I mean? So like the thing about making content for a brand or for yourself or for anyone is that if you are lazy about it and you just slap up, here's a picture of me holding a pen. Buy my pen. I'm Holly. This pen's great. Like no one's buying the pen. It doesn't work. So when I say it's not a proper job, I'm being kind of facetious.
But isn't that what people say about being a mother?
Yeah,
being a stay-at-home mum, it's not a proper job.
Like, I'm being facetious. Like, I don't mean that I don't think it's a proper job. What I mean is, in the world, it's a silly job, right? You get sent free things. You're at the top of a privileged pile.
But
you get paid for.
I get it. But to Jessie's point, and to Michelle Battersby's point more specifically, isn't this just another example of stuff women do being dismissed and demeaned, whereas these women are entrepreneurs?
I'm very uncomfortable putting influencers being demeaned for women's work in the same basket as like childcare workers being demeaned for women's work.
Anything that women do, but people don't say childcare worker as a slur, not as a slur.
But like as in if it's not valued in society, it's not well paid.
That's a different thing. But what she's talking about is in the realm of chick lit, mummy blogger, influencer. It's all used to demean and diminish women.
And there is a contempt, a tone of like
contempt,
hatred towards the people who do it. And I appreciate a lot of what you're saying, Holly. I think we almost felt more comfortable with influencers a few years ago. I think that with the state that a lot of Australian families are in at the moment, if you open Instagram and you see someone unboxing an enormous gift every day, unboxing isn't necessarily paid work, but I've seen a particular influencer who I do this and I go, yeah, it's irking me. It's just constant consumption and every day is a different serum and a different foundation. And I go, this is all you do.
But I don't have that in my feed because that's up to you who you follow. It's the same as saying there are ads I don't like on TV. How is this different to advertising except instead of a whole lot of men in suits getting the money, it's women who are getting the money. And what the internet's allowed women to do is to create their own content, branded and unbranded, build a platform, build followers, and take control.
Mamamia out loud! So we've all seen the hilarious memes about the oldest daughter and how anxious she is and how she's on top of everything. That's actually a real problem.
Around this table where we are recording out loud today, there's at least 2 of the 3 of us are eldest daughters in our families. I don't know what you'd call you, Jessie, and we'll get to that in a minute, but the plight of the eldest daughter is an article that's going around a lot of group chats. It's from The Atlantic, and it basically outlines the argument that eldest daughters in a family, you don't have to be the oldest child, you just have to be the eldest daughter. So even if you've got you might have 4 older brothers, but you're still the eldest daughter. It says that firstborns are expected to be exemplars and women are expected to be nurturers. And when you have both, it's exhausting. There's a professor at Lancaster University who has shared that older siblings as well as daughters of all ages tend to face high expectations from their family. There's always more pressure on the eldest daughter to be the caretaker, to be the responsible one. And of course, there are exceptions to every rule. And sometimes people will sort of fuck with that in the way that Holly has, for example, by moving over to the other side of the world and abrogating her responsibilities as the eldest daughter. The way you have, Jessie, I don't really even understand because you're a twin, born slightly earlier than Claire.
No, Claire's the eldest
by
half an hour.
You were born first.
But I think that Claire's eldestness has been diluted. Like I think that
by being a twin.
Yes, I think that we get to share it, but I also relate to all of this.
This study shows that gender definitely plays a role because women are usually the kin keepers, meaning that they perform the labour that's often invisible, like making sure everyone's happy and conflicts are resolved and everybody feels paid attention to. So it's essentially being the Nicole in the family. Yep. And then birth order, where that comes into it, it doesn't necessarily affect your personality, but it can definitely influence how your family sees you. Holly, you are the eldest daughter. You have an older brother, and yet you were puzzled by this concept.
We were having a conversation, Mia and I, out in the kitchen about this topic. And she said, well, you're the eldest daughter. And I said, I'm not. What are you talking about? And she was like, yes, you are. And I was like, what? I never think of myself as the eldest. There's two of us. My brother's the eldest.
Yeah.
He's the eldest. Right.
Yeah,
so
right.
I think it's different.
Yeah.
I think that there is something that happens when you are the eldest and you are a female.
Yeah, I reckon that's true.
No, because I'm a youngest of two, but I'm the female. So I have a different experience to Holly.
Obviously, this is a thing. No question. Right. So my mother-in-law, Julie, was the youngest of 4 children, but she was the only daughter. So she was the oldest daughter. She had to literally leave school at 14 to get a job and help look after the 3 brothers and get them through school.
So did my grandmother, who was the eldest daughter.
Yeah. Yep. So that's a very common thing. Interestingly, she then had 4 children, 3 boys and 1 girl, and her daughter did not do that. As in, her daughter was not the one to look after her and everything in her age. By her life choices, she made that not happen. And the person in the family who was most suited to that is the person who did it, which is the way it should be, in my opinion. I can see unquestionably this is a thing, but I would encourage all put upon eldest daughters in this day and age to shake it off.
Move countries?
Well, not only that, but like in the same way that when we talk about domestic labour and the mental load, I often get in trouble because they'll say, my partner just won't X, Y, Z. And I'm just like, well, just don't do it.
No,
don't do it. My view is that you can make yourself be the martyr. It will be forced upon you by your gender and your role in the family. And maybe it suits you and maybe it doesn't. I've got some friends who are not the eldest daughter actually, but they play that role. And it's because they're the organizer, they're the Nicole. It suits them. They like to be the one who decides where everyone goes for Christmas. And they want to be in charge of when mum and dad should sell the house to put their money in the,
So you're disputing that it's...
I think it's a cultural thing. But what I'm saying is like every cultural thing, we can fuck with it if we want.
Okay, so... Yes, there is the eldest daughter who, I mean, I don't like using the word controlling, but I appreciate that. They want to have control over where Christmas is. They want to
I don't necessarily mean control, but maybe they just like doing
They like that. There is another type of eldest daughter, and this is what I relate with. If I drop the ball, Dad doesn't get a birthday present, there's no birthday cake. This isn't specific to my example, but Christmas doesn't happen. The people who suffer are the people you love. So it's a real trap because you go, if I don't do it, then the whole thing will fall apart.
You've just described every domestic labour conundrum in the country.
Yeah.
Every woman who goes, well, if I don't organise Timmy's birthday party, Timmy won't get a birthday party.
Timmy suffers, your partner
Timmy won't
doesn't
really
suffer.
suffer.
Timmy
if he just
will,
eats a sausage at the park.
Timmy will be traumatised.
Timmy will. So daughtering is the term that's used to describe the family work that women and girls take on. And I really relate to this. Daughtering can be satisfying and even joyful at times, but it can also mean being the one who's responsible, particularly as your parents get older. I mean, obviously not necessarily when you're young, but do we need to see a societal shift towards daughters, but particularly the eldest daughter, so she's not carrying, which is what you're saying, Holly, but I just don't understand how that can happen because I'm the one that in my family, my brother's 7 years older than me, but I organise the group text. I'm the one that organises what Christmas is. I make sure that we do something for mum's birthday.
Your eldest ordering in a big way.
Yeah, I eldest daughter.
Yeah.
What would happen if you didn't do it?
Mum would suffer or dad would
But
suffer.
what would happen if you said to your brother, this decision has to come up in the family, whether it's about, whether or not mum and dad
Move house or-
not necessarily your mum and dad, but whether or
Yeah.
not mum and dad can still live in that house or whether they need stairs or, a ramp put in or whatever. You deal with that. Delegation. What would happen?
Sometimes I think it's the water you swim in as a fish. You've just taken on that role
100%.
without even accepting it, realising it, being conscious of it. And it's just, if you want to get something done, you do it. So I agree with you.
But isn't it interesting? Because you're so right. You're 100% right. We all play roles in our families, and this is obviously massively gendered, this one. It's similar in friendship groups, but different. But if you think about how many times we hear from women, whether it's in a dilemma or whatever, who's like, I'm the one who has to do all of the things that you were just talking about. If I don't do it, no one does it. Sometimes it just makes me feel like I'm underwater. Sometimes it makes me feel invisible. Sometimes it makes me feel frustrated and, taken for granted and all those things. It's part of that fabric of stuff that is like weighing women down. So at some point, and again, massive generalization, given that these days women also have a lot of other shit weighing them down, like as much paid work as anyone else, parenting, all of the things, we are the only ones in control of blowing that up. Do you know what I mean?
I read a tweet that said being an eldest daughter is like an unpaid internship for the rest of your life. And I thought that's actually quite accurate.
Hello, I am so excited that it is finally Strike Week, or the week of Strike. Thank you to Mia for being brave. I know you feel very vulnerable with this coming out, but the kick-ass woman doing kick-ass things of kick-assery, and we are all so proud of you and so excited. Have a great week. Well done.
If you want to make Out Loud part of your routine 5 days a week, we release segments on Tuesdays and Thursdays just for Mamamia subscribers. To get full access, follow the link in the show notes, and a big thank you to all our current subscribers.
Front pages around Australia on the weekend carried headlines about our Prime Minister that stopped me in my IGA checkout queue. It's very old-fashioned of me, isn't it? They said Albo is a beta male PM under the tagline, voters say government not strong enough. Now, the term beta male PM came apparently from voter polling that's been done for News Corp publications in Queensland and South Australia. And phrases pulled out by the researchers from the focus groups and then run in the publications said he was a follower, not a leader, in inverted commas, bland, and beta male who was ineffectual. Now, I want to park whether or not we think Albo is tough or weak or whatever, because I think depending on who you're listening to at the moment, he's either too unfeeling or too empathetic, too steadfast or too compromising. But the use of the term beta male in massive letters on the literal front page of a newspaper was interesting to me. So just in case you're thinking, what's a beta male exactly? It only really exists in relationship to an alpha male, right? And an alpha male is, the definition is, typically described as the dominant and most influential member of a social group. The alpha leader's mentality is strong, confident, assertive, and in control of his environment. He has the ability to lead, motivate, and inspire those around him while maintaining a sense of power over his peers, clearly written by an alpha. The beta description is a man who is not as successful or powerful as other men. Compare alpha male. So we're often being told that masculinity is in crisis and it needs some new parameters. But does it the fact that this phrasing, the beta male, was pulled out as the most damaging thing that could be said about the Prime Minister right now, at least, that being beta is not a strength? And I wanted to ask you, Jessie, if you think that in what we could predictably describe as like troubled times at the moment, there's blood in the water for the beta men, and that actually people are looking for an alpha.
It does seem that way. And beta is, the term itself feels very purposeful because a beta only exists within a dynamic with an alpha. So without even saying anything about Peter Dutton, what you're saying is that he's an alpha and that Albanese is a beta. That's the dynamic that's happening.
No, I think you can have two betas. So when, for example, Kim Beazley was going up against John Howard in an election, I would describe them both as beta males.
But that's interesting that they wouldn't have used this type of language.
It wasn't around, but do you know what was around and why Kim Beazley lost that election is that someone described him as not having the ticker to be Prime Minister, which is a coded way of saying beta male, and he never really recovered from that.
Which speaks to the only way to truly criticise a man is to attack his masculinity, which is what this has done. It's put his masculinity into question. I don't know how you come back from that. You know, the same way as with a woman, what do you attack? You attack the way she looks. Like it's just the most kind of...
Or her sexual history.
Yeah, exactly right. Well, in a way like her femininity, like you would do the same to a man. But it also goes to show that when it comes to elections, even though with politics you can talk about policy and there's debates and all that kind of stuff, most people vote on a feeling. And once you plant the seed of like there's something a bit beta about him, that could be the thing that undoes.
But also because beta can be a bit of a compliment at times.
Yeah.
Like I don't think it's entirely new that people have suggested that Albo has a beta energy, right? I think that was sort of discussed around the election, but it was seen as maybe a good thing because we were coming off the back of a very alpha prime minister. And I think
Scott Morrison.
Yeah, and I think that sometimes politics aside, like if you look at like the most powerful men in the world at the moment, so Elon Musk, right? And Mark Zuckerberg, famously pitted against each other. In fact, Elon, the alpha, would like them to be literally pitted against each other in a fight club. And Elon Musk is sitting around at the minute telling advertisers to go fuck themselves, just making all these random claims. He is so driven by ego, you can literally almost see the ego pouring out of his eyes. And some people find that very reassuring and still as a real sign of leadership. Whereas for other people, they're like, this is dangerous. And I think that women can feel that way often about alpha men, is you're like, this might be quite sexy and appealing in a way, but this is dangerous. A beta might be a safer option. But maybe at the moment, because the world feels kind of a bit dangerous, trying to paint our leader as being a bit of a wuss, which is a terrible word, but that's what they're trying to do, is a negative.
I was also really struck by that headline because I was like, it was clearly designed to be a slur and a criticism. And I was like, why is being a beta male seen as the worst thing you can be? Like, what does that say about our culture? And back to what you were saying about difficult times, during COVID, if you look at the leaders of America, Australia and the UK, Scott Morrison, Boris Johnson and Donald Trump, you couldn't get more alpha than those three guys. Now, it's unfortunate that all the alphas that we've named, throw Elon Musk in there, are people who were very popular. You know, even Elon's got his people that love him, but ultimately were seen to be very flawed.
And destructive, perhaps.
And were all voted out at the end of COVID, and 3 betas were voted in their place, interestingly, in all those 3 countries. It's interesting because we've talked about this on the show before. The 3 of us, all our partners, we've all chosen beta males. We've all dated alpha guys. And I don't think it's a case of one is better than the other. I think it's just a different type of guy. Like you can have an alpha man, like George Clooney's an alpha man. I would say Brad Pitt is an alpha guy.
What do you reckon?
Mick Jagger is an alpha guy.
What do you think's the telltale trait that definitely makes a guy an alpha?
You know, Chris Hemsworth, I would say, is an alpha, and I would say Liam is more of a beta. So I think what it is a real
uncomplicated confidence. It's got to do with confidence, I think.
Well, no, but it's like Harry Styles is a beta, but I wouldn't say he's not confident. And I wouldn't say our partners aren't confident, but they're quietly confident. They're more quieter. So in a base way, you could say extrovert and introvert, and they're not judgment calls. That's just how you present to the world. Confidence feels too simplistic.
So when an alpha walks in a room, and I think these are terms you can apply to women too. They're just different. So when an alpha walks in a room, they command or demand a level of attention, right? When we were talking about it before, I was saying I don't really buy that any world leader can really be a beta, right? Because the tenacity, the smarts, the ability to win people over and to lead.
I disagree. None of those things have anything to do with being alpha or beta.
But that's what's interesting because in my mind they do, right?
Okay.
Like to me, an alpha guy is a leader and a beta man is a follower, and that's what the definition suggests. All these guys that we're just talking about are leaders. You don't get elected to lead a party or be the person who's opening a movie or whatever if you don't have an element of people wanting to follow you and be influenced by you and do what you're doing. But when I think of alphas, I think of them as being, they demand that space.
Yeah.
They demand that you're listening. And
they take up more space.
They have to be right. They're not necessarily known for their great listening skills. That's what I think of when I think of alphas. Like, I understand, I know, you know, that kind of thing.
When an alpha walks in the room, you know, or if you're at a dinner party, you can easily pick who the alpha guys are. There is a certain external confidence that's very telegraphed and very visible in an alpha.
I'm wondering where this leaves us in terms of female leadership. Because if we're in a moment that's demanding alpha leadership again because of domestic and also international issues, then are we just going to find ourselves with, and I'm saying this kind of tongue-in-cheek, but strong men again? It feels like a beta is also a way of marginalising potential female leadership. It doesn't feel like we're getting any closer to putting a female leader up.
I agree, but women can be alphas. We just call it type A. When we call someone a type A woman, that's what we're saying. They're the alpha, right? So Mia's an alpha.
I'm an alpha.
A million miles.
Hillary Clinton was an alpha. Amanda Vanstone, it's hard to,
What am I?
You're a beta. You're so
I'm
beta.
an uncharismatic beta. I am so depressed about how I have landed.
But I wish I was less alpha. Like, all I want is to be more beta, like my dream. And I think as I get older, I'm trying to become more beta. I mean, I know that's funny, but
this is interesting in itself. Can you change, right?
Can you change?
Because here's
I
an
don't
interesting
think
thing.
you
Like,
can.
I'm a beta too, right? And I think you can be a very, very successful beta, as you are, Jessie, right? Does your success transfer you into alpha space, right? Because stereotypical view of Jessie 10 years ago, and we're using this right, didn't have a lot of confidence, not feeling like, but then enormously successful on the television every week, on the biggest female podcast in the country, writes best-selling books. That's alpha territory, right?
Like, what do I have to do to be an alpha?
Exactly. That's my question. What do you have to do to be an alpha? Can you transfer?
It's kind of like, I don't think you can become a Nicole. I think some people are just born with it. But what has changed for you has been confidence. We've talked about confident betas, right? They're the ones you want.
Yeah, right.
That's what I think we all should aspire to, is to be a confident beta.
We mentioned it at the top, and Mia actually said to me, look, we're not recommending this. They're sick of it. You're not going to be sick of it. I feel the need to sell in Strife to you a little bit because I don't have any skin in this game.
You watched it fresh.
I was not a producer. I was not a writer.
We missed you.
It's not about me. There were a couple of scenes in there when I was like, that might be a little bit about me.
There's someone with a very interesting Holly Wainwright accent, isn't there, Holly? There is a Manchester.
And there is a line in there when she's like, just let the woman live. And I was like, fuck, I say that every day.
So true.
But the thing about this show is, and people keep asking me about it, and I keep saying to them the same thing. I'm like, it's not a Mia biopic. It's a more interesting idea than that. I mean, that would be great anyway. Mia's a great storyline, but it is very clever, very stylish, like really prestige TV. If anyone was thinking, oh, I'm going to get some like tabloidy splashy thing about, oh, Mia, the trolls are mean to me or whatever it is, I don't know.
No.
That's not what they're getting, right? This is such a classy show. It's called Strife, my friends. If you haven't heard, it stars Asha Keddy and many other excellent people. It is on Binge. It's all there. And you will binge it.
If you liked Offspring, if you liked Fleabag,
Yes.
what else is it? If you like Catastrophe, which we were all obsessed with for a while there, it's funny, but it doesn't feel like a show that you've seen before.
Yeah.
It looks really different.
I love the titles.
It's a bit edgy.
Even. I love the word Strife comes
yeah.
up at the beginning every time looking different. Anyway, you'll know what I'm talking about when you watch it, friends. That is my recommendation for today. It is binge day for Strife on Binge right now.
And I want you to watch the episodes really quickly because I want you to get to episode 4, which is the episode that Claire and I co-wrote. Also, Mia and I just really want you to see our names in the credits. So
That was weird,
cheer for us,
man.
They
please.
come up really quick. They come up really big at the end of the episode that Claire and Jessie wrote. It comes up really big, written by Claire and Jessie Stevens in massive letters. It's like, wow.
It's all very strange. And Out Loud is, once you've watched it, pop in the group, talk about it and let us know what questions you want us to answer and we will do that. And if you're looking for something else to listen to right now, oh my goodness, yesterday's subscriber episode, we had a ding-dong about whether marriage can be feminist. I think this has been one of our Out Loud bingo topics because
We just
Jessie and
can't
I
agree.
are married. Jessie's newlywed, so she's particularly in the thrall of this institution.
And very defensive
Holly's
about
rejected
it. To it.
and it was passionate. We had strong thoughts. Holly got so feisty. And a link to that episode will be in the show notes. Listen to it right now.
And before we go, an exciting thing that we have launched in the lead up to Christmas. It is called the Lazy Girl Giveaway that Claire and I have thrown together. And it's 10 days of Christmas. I know you're thinking, aren't there 12 days of Christmas? No, we break on the weekends.
Not for lazy girls.
Not for lazy girls. If you are a subscriber, you are already in the running to win all of these prizes. If you are not a subscriber, it will take you 30 seconds. Become a subscriber. But Jessie, I need to know what kind of things I could win. Well, I'll tell you.
Hello, the first thing on this list is something I want. Can I
A
enter?
robo vacuum. You're a subscriber, Holly.
I am.
You're a subscriber.
automatically
You could
entered.
absolutely win a robo vacuum. You know it also mops. It vacuums and it mops. Can you even
I
deal?
need more robots in my life.
$1,000 The Iconic voucher, $1,000 Uber Eats voucher. There are just great prizes all around. If you're a subscriber, you're already in the running. To find out more, link in our show notes.
Thank you for listening to Australia's #1 news and pop culture show. This episode was produced by Emeline Gazilas. The assistant producer is Tahli Blackman, with audio production from Leah Porges. And we'll see you tomorrow.
Bye. Shout out to any Mamamia subscribers listening. If you love the show and want to support us as well, subscribing to Mamamia is the very best way to do so. There is a link in the episode description.